So far, watching all the Hellraiser sequels for the first time, I haven't thought any of them were awful. I thought that a couple of them were bad, but they weren't the worst thing ever. But watching Hellraiser Revelations, this is one of the worst horror movies I've ever seen. Oh my god, like just watching this, the second it started, I was like, this is going to be awful, and it was atrocious. Like, I can't believe that. Like I said, the other sequels, everybody says all the sequels are terrible. And I feel like people overuse terrible, like to where it's like, oh, this alright movie is just awful. And that's how I felt about watching these sequels. Like, they're not, none of them I hated or thought were the worst thing ever. I thought Bloodline and Deader were bad, but they weren't like the worst thing ever. But watching this one, this... Now, I'm going to talk about the backstory of this movie before, so you get an idea about why it made me even more mad after watching this, that I looked up trivia on this movie, because I'm like, what is up with this damn movie? This movie was rushed into production because they wanted the rights to mention, and they literally made this in about 3 weeks, filming and making the movie, and Doug Bradley didn't return as Pinhead because he would have gotten SAG scale money, like he would have gotten nothing. And he and Clive Barker have been on account saying that they think this movie is horrible, and like one of the worst things ever for them. Just seeing that this was an embarrassment to them as a movie, as a Hellraiser movie, and wow, just watching this movie, like, first I'll point out how there's no likable characters in this at all. I thought that these characters are all uninteresting and boring, and I thought the acting, almost all of the acting, was awful. They literally got actors just to, I don't know if they've been anything else, but these actors they put in this had the acting ability of a porno. Like, they were not good. Like, they literally just were that level of acting, like, really bad. And the camera work in this is terrible. It looks like I could have literally gone to this house with these people and filmed this movie myself and made it less shaky than this, because the camera they have is a horrible camera where it looks not like a film. And I know these sequels, for the most part, are all direct-to-video sequels, but the other ones at least have credibility in terms of, like, effects or camera work. This has nothing, literally nothing, no uniqueness about it in terms of how it's filmed, how it's shot, how it looks. There's no cinematography at all. It's just literally a camera being moved around the room whenever the movie is running. So it looks terrible, and it looks just like an amateurish person just directed this. Like somebody made a Hellraiser movie and then sent it into Dimension, and they're like, oh, we'll use this. It feels like that. It looks awful, and these characters are awful. And let's talk about the big elephant in the room, which is Doug Bradley is not in this movie as Pinhead. I felt like before I watched this and I saw that 2.8 rating on IMDb, I'm like, that's probably because Doug Bradley isn't in this, because I knew he wasn't going to be in this one. I knew after the last one I saw he wasn't going to be in the other sequels. So this new actor who plays Pinhead is really awful. He tries to be like Doug Bradley, but he so distractingly looks like he's not Doug Bradley, and it's annoying. They literally just got a bald guy, and they're like, he's Pinhead. Let's put this bald guy in this movie because we can't get Doug Bradley back, because Doug Bradley, like, I mean, I understand not getting paid, like, of course, like, if you're doing something like this, like, it's a job, like, you want to get paid for money. But it's like, God, like, this guy looks nothing like Doug Bradley. It's just a bald guy, and he looks so distractingly not like Doug Bradley, so I'm like, every time I see him, I'm like, this looks awful. And so this is just really awful in all aspects. And it's about this boring family who tries to find what's going on whenever these two guys, who are trying to get laid, go and find Pinhead's box, and then of course they get taken, and then one of them comes back, and then one of them is dead and is needing blood, like the first couple Hellraiser movies. Like, he needs blood to come back, or flesh. So the one of the kids, and I don't remember which one, because I thought these characters were horrible. I couldn't remember their names, but the two kids who encounter the box, one of them comes back injured into the house with the family. Then he starts murdering off the family, and it just makes no damn sense. And then eventually, by the end, they are transported into Pinhead's evil like lair thing that like is in all the movies, where it's got all the chains everywhere. And it literally just, I don't know, there's nothing I could say about this. It's literally, even if there weren't any other sequels, this would have been awful. Like this just, or any Hellraiser films, this would have been awful, because they use the exact same type of thing in every movie, where it's like these people encountered the box, Pinhead comes and like tries to kill them, and it happens in this too, but because of the horrible acting, because of how horrible it's shot, how it looks, it just was terrible, and there was nothing really I can give this movie to say anything good about it, honestly, at all. Like, I literally can't think of anything. Just one of the most cheapest, like, cash grabs I've ever seen for a movie. Oh, and real quick, actually, let me pull up my phone, because I looked up some reviews on this, and I thought that these reviews were hilarious for this movie. I have to talk about them. Because whenever this came out, like, all these horror reviewers were going insane, like, just reacting to this. Like, Scott Weinberg, who's an awesome, like, film reviewer, I follow him on Twitter, his response to this movie was that he called the film a contractually mandated piece of intentional garbage that exists for no other reason than pure simple greed. This is amateur horror stuff all the way, and it's almost endearingly stupidly enjoyable if this witless cinematic refuse wasn't dancing on the grave of a true classic of the genre. Like, that's hilarious that these reviews just crack me up. And then Clive Barker and Doug Bradley, like I was talking about, they said that Barker's only comments for this was that the film he had nothing to do with it, because they said from the mind of Clive Barker on the box, and that's a lie. And his response was, I have nothing to do with the fucking thing. If they claim it's from the mind of Clive Barker, it's a lie. It's not even from my butthole. It's what Clive Barker said whenever they intentionally put his name on this, which he has nothing to do with. Wow, just, I love the fact that this is just so awful. I mean, I hated the movie, I hated it, but those reviews and reactions from Clive Barker and was hilarious, and just from reviewers reviewing this movie was hilarious. So I just thought this was terrible. Like, it literally, again, there was nothing. I thought this was abysmal, honestly. Like, I've never seen a sequel like this, where it's just, I mean, I've seen sequels that are awful, that like literally have nothing to do with the other ones, and it just, this one I felt like had no credibility to it. It reminded me of something like I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, which I thought was awful too, where like has nothing to do with the first two movies, and it connects only with the fisherman, and it's awful in film just like this, and it's got terrible acting. But that actually, I think, has better like filmmaking than this one. This one was filmed in a couple weeks with terrible acting, terrible shoddy camera work, and it just looks awful. So I hated this piece of shit. This was terrible. I literally was sitting there like, I can't find anything to give this movie. Even the ones, like I said, like I didn't like Deader, and I didn't like Bloodline, but at least I can give a couple positive things about those movies. This one I can't. They literally have this, like Scott Weinberg said, this is an amateurish, intentionally piece of garbage like that is just put out to keep the rights. So this was just terrible. Never watching this one again. Oh my god, this one was awful. But like I said, I've enjoyed most of the sequels so far, except for this one. So I guess that's a good thing. So we got one more, which is Judgment, and I hear that one's pretty good. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for Judgment.